Hey everyone, it's Joe. I normally have another YouTube channel called the NKU Experiment, but this video really had nothing to do with that, so I decided to keep them separate, and I actually don't have any videos on my channel until now. But I watched a video a while back from a guy called The One Janitor. It was called "Where Does Atheist Morality Come From?" Now, there's a link below to it. It's kind of profane, but it is good to see where an atheist is coming from on this. Although, since everything is relative to them, who knows if that's where they're all coming from or whether that's just him. But I found the video kind of interesting, but obviously, being a Christian, I found some mistakes in it, and I found his reasoning a bit off. So this snarky Christian is going to attempt to address him. So without further ado, to this unnamed man. I wish I could address you by name, but I just want to start off by saying that you start off saying that you question whether morality even exists. So the whole point of your video is you're trying to say where morality comes from, but then right from the start you say, well, if morality even exists. Well, if the whole point of your video is trying to explain where your morality comes from, then why are you questioning if it even exists in the first place? Now, I need to correct you on some of your errors on religion. You seem to spend a lot of time addressing someone you don't even believe in, and you spend a lot of time too dancing around the very question that you're trying to address. You mentioned God approved murder, rape, and slavery. I would really encourage you to find anywhere in the Bible, at least, where God approves of murder and rape, because I've done some pretty decent studying of it myself, and I haven't found any of that. Now, I really don't know where the rape came from. I have no idea, but I think where you're getting the murder part from is that you haven't correctly defined what murder is. Because you say later on that, well, I think we could all conceive of a situation where murder might be okay, but any person with morals couldn't conceive of a situation where murder is okay. So I'm thinking that you are probably thinking that murder is equated to anyone killing another person, which is not the case. See, I can kill someone in self-defense, and that's not murder. If someone murders someone else and they're executed, executing them is not murder. If someone, I don't mean to be too morbid, but if someone kills themselves, that's not murder. So you see, killing someone is not necessarily equated to murder. Murder is something that is against the law. Killing someone else against the law. And when you look, yes, God kills a lot of people, but that always comes out of his laws. And you say, well, those are some pretty harsh laws, killing people for adultery and things. The Israelite society was a theocracy. And so when people broke certain of God's laws, they were punishable by death. And it's hard to wrap our minds around sometimes because we don't have those same sorts of punishments, but that's what was expected of them, and it all pointed to a time later on when today we wouldn't have to be under those same laws. And when you look at all these other countries that Israel attacked, that was all either in self-defense or a preemptive strike when they would have been attacked. So that was all killing in war. That would be like you saying that, well, any of our troops that kill people, that makes them murderers. That's not all killing is murder. So, and as far as the slavery goes, there were some slaves that were in the Israelite society that came from other nations, but it's not the kind of slavery that we think of today, like with African Americans, that they were just brutalized all the time. It was a fair treatment of them, and they were able to live amongst their society, and if they couldn't buy their freedom before then, or if they weren't set free by their owners before then every 50 years, all of them were set free. And your grouping of all religions together does you no favors either. Say, well, God doesn't exist because Islam is violent. What? I don't believe a word of the Quran. Like I mean, pardon the frankness, but I really don't care what the Quran says. Like, no, I'm not saying I don't care about Muslims or care about Arabic people or anything, but I don't believe the Quran. So it really doesn't matter to me what it says, because that's not what I follow. That's not even close to what my beliefs are. So to say, well, we're just all in this big group of people, you Muslims and Christians and all that, and there's such a wide range of beliefs among this umbrella of Christianity too, that to just throw us all into one lump just because we contrast you who doesn't believe in God, it doesn't make sense. When you look, see, Jesus talked about what true religion is, and he mentioned it as being undefiled, and that is a true belief in him. That is what true Christianity is believing in him. Now, I'm not about to start preaching at you real deeply, but I need to clarify this, that is what Christianity is. And once people accept him, he begins this work of sanctification in our lives, which is where he starts changing us and starts changing our actions, changing our works, and starts molding us more and more into his image. So any true Christian would never kill in the name of God. That wouldn't even register to us. Yes, there are people that do it, but those people aren't true Christians. But people use religion for stuff all the time. They use it to kill, they use it to profit off of stuff, but that was warned of in the Bible too. But do you know why they're able to do that? Because people are drawn to religion. And do you know why they're drawn to religion? Because they feel the need to worship something. We have God-given consciences that tell us that there is a God that created us, and that to a point certain things are wrong. That's the Bible. Paul in 2 Timothy 4:2 talks about men that have their consciences seared with a hot iron. So he says, in order to do these acts, you would have to completely cut off that conscience that you've been given. And that's why you have, this conscience is also why you have people in remote places that have never been in contact with any other society, that when we find them, they're still worshiping some random god that they've set up, or they're worshiping something because that has been placed inside us, that we have to worship something. Because our desire is to be reconciled to the person that created us. And this conscience is also why an atheist would say that murder is wrong. But when it comes to most things, however, you actually nailed it. You said morality is contrived, and morality for anyone who doesn't believe in God is contrived, because it's all relative. And you say, well, you know, we all generally agree on honesty. But I mean, look at the leaders of North Korea and China, and look at Vladimir Putin. Leaders like that, they don't agree on honesty. There's no honesty in them. To say that we all generally have a societal consensus on honesty, where do you get that from? And then you also say that, you said right at the beginning that, well, we can all agree that murder is wrong. What about the murderers? In 2010, the Center for Disease Control and I can't talk, I'm sorry. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention reported that there were over 16,000 murders in 2010. You think all the people that murdered them thought that murder was wrong? Well, this is just a general societal consensus. Yeah. But all things apart from God are relative, according to us. Now, you say that murder is wrong, and I'm glad that you do, but according to whose standards? Because, I mean, later on you say, well, you know, it's, you changed your argument throughout your video. Because, you know, you said, first of all, well, it's this, and you get later on and you say it's because of our empathy, you know, we want to all treat people like we wanted to, but where does our empathy come from? You never explain that. You say, well, we just know it. How do we know it? And you say with wanting to not harm people or not wanting to murder people, that it's all due to our survival instincts, and that how we would want to survive, then we would also want others to survive. But I don't know about your survival instincts, but with my survival instincts, I'm gonna kill whoever I have to stay alive. That's my very instinct and my very nature inside of me. That's what I think. I'm not thinking about, well, I wonder how they feel. I'm not worried about anyone else. You say, well, what about the God-given morals? Well, you can cut those off when it comes to something like that. But see, that's why it takes a reliance on God. because we all have that sin nature inside of us that is capable of anything. You say, well, we all can agree on murder. Well, apart from God, let's say you're right. Let's say there's no God. Well, hypothetical situation here. Alright, so you say murder's wrong. This is your line of morals here. So murder's wrong and abortion. By the way, abortion, Job 3:16 says that infants, it talks about babies that were never born being called infants that never saw light. Numbers 12:12 talks about mothers of dead babies. They're dead babies, not. It's talking about babies that were born dead. And it still calls those women mothers. In Proverbs 6, this is a pretty popular passage. These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination to him, hands that shed innocent blood. And if you've ever seen an abortion procedure or pictures of it, there's definitely innocent blood that is shed. So the Bible's clear on a whole lot more than you think. But so you say, alright, murder's wrong, abortion, I don't know. And then all this other stuff, obviously you think that cursing is okay. But, all this other stuff, sex before marriage, that's probably alright. Whatever else, But really, it's all kind of relative. But, this over here, murder and all these, like, real bad things, that's all stuff that we agree on. Well, who says we agree on that? Well, it's a general societal consensus. Yeah, that may be what most of society thinks, but remember, in atheism, there is no one above me. There's no one above man. I am my own God. I make my own rules. I make my own morals. I decide what's right and wrong. So, you have your set here, and then someone else comes along and they say, well, I think abortion is wrong, and I think murder is wrong. And so I'm going to push this a little bit farther this way. But then I come along and I'm like, oh, what does it matter if I kill somebody? Because remember, life, it was just an accident anyway, so, we're all just going to die, and then that's it. So, life isn't special anyway. So, it's survival of the fittest. So, obviously, I am the more fit to survive. They didn't see it coming. I had the better weapons. And so there is one less person living on Earth now. And you're like, dude, I told you murder is wrong. I'm like, yeah, you told me. I don't care what you say. You see, we're on the same level here. And me and society, we're on the same level. And you say, yeah, maybe, I say, yeah, it may be against the law, but who made the law? Other men. So you see, there's no one that is above me. So I decide what I want to do. You see how dangerous that line of thinking is? There's no one that can tell me what's right and wrong, because it's all up to me. It's all my decision. Now, we've established all of this. We've looked at all these different parts of your videos. Now, let me show you what the truth is. And I'm not even going to use any of the Bible. But, see, you spent most of your video not answering the actual question that you were trying to answer, but trying to discredit other religions. So, not out of any kind of, oh, let me show you up, but out of trying to show you. Remember, you said that you were a Christian. Well, if you are a true Christian, then God says that no man can pluck you out of my hand. So if you are a true Christian, then you still are. And if not, then talk to someone about it and get it settled. But, so, atheists, they believe the Big Bang Theory, and in the beginning there was a tiny particle, microscopic particle, infinitely dense and infinitely hot. Now here's where we run into our first problem. Infinite is not a scientific term. Anytime that you run into anything, you can always define its density and always define its temperature. So in a case like this, they're dancing around defining what this particle actually is and its actual power and capability. They're just saying, well, it was infinitely this. Well, infinite, it's not a term. It doesn't actually exist. Just, it defines something that goes on forever. And when it comes to a definition of something like temperature or density, that can't go on forever. It has to have a definite term. But moving on past that, we have this infinitely dense and infinitely hot microscopic particle that explodes, and out of that we have everything we see around us. Now, there is a law in science. I'm going to have to look it up and see what it is. But there's a scientific law that states that, which it's not really that hard to figure out. I mean, it's pretty common sense, that anything that is broken, all the pieces of it will be smaller than the original piece. So you say, well, would that really hold true for an explosion? Even when a bomb explodes, all of the pieces of metal and things will be smaller than the original pieces of metal. It won't create new mass in it. Even when a star goes supernova, all the pieces of the star and the energy in it, I can't use very good scientific terms because I'm not much of a science person. All of those are smaller than the original piece. So how then can a microscopic particle create even me, much less the building I'm in, Earth, the solar system, the galaxy, the 200 billion galaxies that we can see? Beyond that, that particle, and they say the early universe that was about 13.7 billion years old, give or take a couple 100 million years, which is kind of a big gap. But um, they say that that was made up of mostly hydrogen and helium, I believe, a couple different gases, with a few other elements that had absolutely no organic elements to them. So how then could all these non-organic elements end up forming any sort of life at all, much less complex life like a human? But all this is a moot point anyway. Because my question to you is, where did that particle come from? It came from another particle? Where did that come from? From another particle. Well, it was always there. Really, because, again, this is another rule that I don't know the name of because I am not a science student, but there's another law, and if you don't believe me, then you can look it up for yourself. It says that something cannot be created from nothing. And again, these were scientists that were making a lot of money off of these rather common sense laws. But if you have a whole bunch of nothing in this vacuum, it doesn't matter how long it sits there, it's not going to create a microscopic particle. So all of a sudden, our mind's blown. We have to think, well then, how does all this happen? Well, as Sherlock Holmes would say, I think it was Sherlock Holmes, whenever any other options have been eliminated, the remaining one, no matter how unlikely, has to be it. So when we know that something can't come from nothing, then it has to be, there has to be something that exists outside of time, that exists in eternity, that had to have created all of that. You say, well, that just doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't make sense to me either, but it makes a whole lot more sense, and it takes a whole lot more faith. It's a whole lot less sense and takes a whole lot more faith to believe that something came from nothing, to believe all of these other random events that took place, and to believe that our body's so complex just happened by chance. You wouldn't believe that this happened by chance. You'd say, well, that, of course it had a maker. But yet we believe that our bodies happen by chance. I think Ken Ham, the founder and CEO of Answers in Genesis, is debating Bill Nye the Science Guy, the childhood hero, on, I believe it's February 4th at either 7 or 8, and there's a webcast of it, and I'm sure he will have a whole lot better scientific information than I can give you. But that right there is enough to make me a Christian, to make me look into the Bible where I haven't found any discrepancies, and to say, well, this has to be it. And you know, Christians aren't perfect at all, but our God is. And so, well, there may be a lot of people out there that are doing things in the name of God, in the name of religion. Know that those aren't legitimate, and know that our true Christianity, our true faith, that is legitimate, and that while we fail so often, that doesn't change the fact of what the truth is, and that we can deny that truth, but that doesn't change the fact that that is still the truth. And so I encourage you to use your God-given reasoning and your God-given conscience. The Bible says that even nature proclaims that there is a God, and to consider it. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Always been told that I can talk for a long time, and I've never disputed that. So for those that have stuck with me for the duration, I do appreciate it. But I'm just thankful for God's grace that He's given me the ability to reason, and above all that He's given me salvation through His Son, and that I don't have to rely on anything else.